Welcome back to Sunrise. We're speaking about the value of debating. Yesterday morning, we had author and poet Colette Robinson on the program, and she spoke about the way we have weaponized words in terms of how media covers events. And a phrase that came up was a familiar phrase in the reportage in Jamaica: Garden House again descended into chaos. So Garden House is a House of Representatives. And it is happening across the globe. The House of Commons, the Congress in the United States, South America and Latin America. Explosive conversations within the Houses of Representatives. In the era of Trump, does this stylized form of defining a mood and appreciating the value of words and that they are units with direction and impact, has that all flown through the window, starting with you, Professor, and then going through to my learned friend at the end?
Yeah. It's difficult to answer questions like that because the optimist in you wants to say, oh no, there is always the possibility. And I do think it's important to maintain skills, whether those skills are appreciated in a particular era. We should always maintain those skills, and that's important. And I think it's also important to remember, and this actually speaks to what Dr. Smaw was mentioning earlier about democracy being for all the people, is the way that a government and a nation is set up to make decisions may seem democratic on the surface, but when certain special interests are given more power, for a period of time, and that may be lengthy, you know, dynasties last centuries, you will have certain portions of society that seem to dominate, and their mode of conversation, their mode of communication will also dominate, their language, their vocabulary. And so what debate teaches you is how to speak across difference, right? How do you communicate with someone who does not agree with you? Yesterday in our morality and ethics lesson, we were having that conversation of, okay, Christianity is a system of morality. It gives you a grounding from which you have ethics of rules. How would you have a conversation with someone who is not Christian to explain your rules in a way that is acceptable to them, even if they're not going to accept the religious foundation? Learning that is even more important, I would say, in an era when there is, as you say, volume over value. And Prof. Smaw, how do you see the appreciation today, or even the necessity of order and rules and procedure in public debate?
Yes, I think this is an excellent question, precisely because of what you opened the question up with, that in different countries, we see the discourse seems to go to the lowest common denominator, where our statesmen are supposed to be stately. We expect them to model great behavior for our students and for the rest of the public. And sometimes, as Professor Hester mentions for us, that the people in power won't be able to do that. And so then it falls on the members of the democracy to model that for them. And so always remember that they are members of the democracy as much as we are members of the democracy. And so they carry burdens as much as we carry burdens. One of their burdens is to be statesmen, and often they fall short of that. In that case, then it's our burden to be statesmen, to model the behavior for them, and to model it for the younger people who enter the democracy as they become adults. So I prefer statesman engagement, and the reason why is so that we get the value of the points across, as opposed to, as you mentioned multiple times, the volume of our voice across.
And Jermaine, in terms of the office being honorable, even if the officer isn't, when those dilemmas are presented, how do persons who have the skills and arts of debating, how do they navigate so that others can understand that both office and officer must attain honor?
I pick up where Professor Smaw left off, that when you exist in a democracy, you have to realize that you are part of the governance of that society. Wherever you are, at whatever level, you have a role to play. And we oftentimes talk about holding our leaders accountable and expecting good performance from them. But it has become a cliche, but it is substantially meaningful. And so one of the ways we can, wherever we are across the society, participate in getting the office that has been harmed by the occupant to become respected is to constantly push and challenge and demand better representation, better leadership, better governance from that officer. We have to as well recognize that as a society, we need leaders. Absolutely, we need leaders at various levels. And it's not just political. It's in entertainment. It's whatever space, and the push must come from every single one of us. Always asking, urging, militating for better improvements. Always, and that's something I feel extremely passionate about. That. It irks me to the core when I see young people, powerful, brilliant, energetic, not being a part of the solution.
Right. Tell us about who the participants are at these events.
Good. So we have participants from several high schools across the island. I just name a few, and please don't hold it against me if I miss yours. St. George's College is there. St. George's College is there. We have, a wide sway of high schools. We also have some tertiary institutions, Northern Caribbean University, NCU, the University of Technology, Jamaica, the University of the West Indies, Monique, and so forth. And so what this is one of the unique things about this is that we have high school students sitting in the very same space as, in many instances, they're more learned, they're more sophisticated, they're more articulate tertiary counterparts. And so there's that consistent exchange of information. So I feel, and it's a debate I have with my colleagues all the time, I feel that kind of environment is healthy because we're stretching the minds of the younger ones, and we're getting the older ones to realize that, hey, you're not being drained, but you're participating in a process to develop the next generation.
You speak about stretching the minds, and earlier one of the outcomes you said of good debating is empathy. The public usually sees the presentation, the articulation, but there is so much preparation and research which ought to precede the presentation. Doesn't always, clearly, but it ought to. Speak to us about the other disciplines that are supported when a debater decides, I'm going to develop and hone this craft.
Absolutely. I tell people that my time in debate has given me critical thinking skills, critical listening skills, research skills, and communication skills. I stopped competitive debate many years ago. Every administrative meeting that I'm in at my university, I'm the one that's taking notes. Right? The president's office is the one who's contacting me to say, what happened? Well, there was something discussed, we might have missed that. So the ability to listen intently to a conversation and really distill from that the most important information is critical. Debate is interdisciplinary. Over the course of these 3 days, our students are going to be discussing education reform. They're going to be discussing politics, but they're also going to be discussing, I mean, yesterday we had a vibrant discussion over which is a better holiday, summer or Christmas, that the reasons why, just the ability to articulate. These reasons and the ability to give good reasons and to recognize the difference between a good reason and a bad reason. As I was saying at the beginning, strategic decision making is something we all do, and it's interdisciplinary. So we believe that our workshop on debating in the curriculum will be obviously for the English and literature classes, but the science classes, the history classes, the politics, all courses that students teach, you need to be able to take in information, to understand good versus bad information, and to use that for decisions that make your life better and the lives of others around you better.
Right. Professor Smaw?
Yeah, I think Professor Hester is exactly right. So if you look into the community and you wonder, well, who engages in debating? We all will agree that our lawyers and our politicians engage in debating. But I would encourage people to look further, because our doctors engage in debating. They will recede back into a conference room and debate about which is the best course of treatment for a particular patient. But in addition to that, our moral leaders engage in debating. So here I would say Dr. King gave us a perfect example. Yes, he debated against other moral leaders about their purpose in a democratic society. So you'll find debating all across a democratic society. There'll be professionals debating, and there'll be competition debating or competitive debating at the college and high school level. And then there'll be debating in families, and as Professor Hester mentioned, there'll be debating there'll be debates that you'll have among, or individually, right, with yourself. And so I find that debating's all across the democracy. And what's good about that is it teaches us to have empathy, to listen to others, but most importantly, to sometimes realize that we're wrong. I don't always have the answers. I am not always right. And often, and sometimes someone else will have a better position that I need to learn to concede to, because it'll be better for us all if we realize that we're wrong and someone else is right and we accept the better position. So debating teaches us how to accept the other position. It seems like it's an egoistic exercise, but it's often a very humbling exercise.
Absolutely agree with that. Closing remarks.
Well, really good conversation so far. Lots to say, lots have been said, but I just want to just highlight again, the importance. And I'll take it from this vantage point. I'll tell you what debating is not. Debating is not a vehicle to solve your own personal crises in terms of identity, finding out who you are, finding answers to life's biggest questions. That's not debating. Debating is a way of getting you closer to finding those answers and expanding your understanding of things. And as fundamentally as human beings, that's the best we can ever get, really.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right? And so just want to urge Jamaica and Jamaicans right across the board to debate a lot more.
Well, debate a lot more and debate in different ways.
In different ways.
Listen
to each
I
other.
hope there is at least a sliver through all of the proceedings that deals with the non-verbal communication. Debating.
We do public speaking as well, and a big component of that is
the non-verbal. Excellent. So be it resolved, this segment was of value. All in favor? Ayes have it. And Whitney Levy has the screen afterwards. It's now time for the morning edition. After that, Sunrise continues. Welcome back to Sunrise. If you're just joining us, good morning. As men, we know sometimes many of us find it difficult to articulate our thoughts and feelings clearly when trying to win an argument. In some cases, frustration with communication can reach to the extreme and may even turn into violence or unhealthy discourse. My next guests, I can confidently say, have fully developed the skill of winning an argument in a productive and positive way. Here to share with us this morning, I have Professor Eric Smaw of Rollins College in Florida, Professor Michael Hester of the University of West Georgia, and Jermaine Barrett. Jermaine, you're familiar with. He's the president and CEO of Jade Limited. Welcome to Sunrise, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. And Jermaine, we're going to start with you. You're hosting these eminent professors. Tell us first a reminder of yours, what's Jade and what this event is all about.
All right, so Jade stands for the Jamaican Association for Debating and Empowerment. And we're hosting our friends here because we are developing a relationship where we're supporting each other to expand debating in our respective countries.
Right.
So we visited them a few months ago. We visited Rawlings 2 years in a row. We visited West Georgia, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And so they are just excited to be here with us to support the work that we're doing in terms of hosting the Jade Debate Academy and Open, which is ongoing right now.
Right. Now you said debate and empowerment, because many people believe that debate is either a hobby activity, an extracurricular activity at the high school level and at some extent to the tertiary level. But debate and the ability to have conversation and to resolve issues and to negotiate solutions go beyond a contest. So we're going to start with you, Professor. Why are you a part of this activity first and foremost?
So my connection with this activity goes back to my love for this country. About 9 years ago, I made my first trip to Jamaica, and I fell in love with it. It's being from the southeastern United States, the climate was similar, and so when it come in December, it would remind me of Georgia in June. I appreciated that. The people are wonderful.
Hold on a second. December in Jamaica is like Georgia in June. So with us complaining now that it is freezing here in Jamaica.
It's still cool right now, but leaving cold, wet Georgia to come to Jamaica in December was quite nice. So I did done that for several years, and actually was on the look for, is there a debate happening in Jamaica, and came upon Jade and their website, Jamaican Association for Debating Empowerment, reached out to Professor Barrett, and we began a conversation that led to Jade, students, and Mr. Barrett and Javon Henry visiting in October to do a public debate that we had with a team from Rwanda at the University of West Georgia in October, and then working here. So that was the connection. So it's because I love Jamaica.
Yeah, and welcome again.
Thank you.
You, sir.
So I'm from Rollins College, and we have an international component to our school.
Yeah.
Our debate team is integral to our international component. And one of the things we look to do is expand debating across the globe and inside of the United States. So we have what we call an international debating exchange with many schools throughout the world. So Cambridge has been to our school, Oxford has been to our school, schools from China, India, of course, Jamaica.
Yes.
And so that's how I connected with Jermaine. I called him up. I requested that he meet with us. He happily obliged, and then we developed what we call the Rollins Jamaica International Debating Exchange.
Yes.
So every so often, we'll invite Jade to Rollins for a week of debating. During that week, they will debate at local high schools and colleges in the Central Florida area. In the middle of the week, we'll have what's called the main debate. That is called the Great Debate. And we'll bring Jade in with Rollins to have the great debate on a topic of international importance to both countries. And so that's my connection here. It started with my schools reach out to the international community to bring other debating societies into our school.
Right.
And we wanted to reach out to Jamaica and the Caribbean as well.
And Jermaine, this platform is now located properly at the National University, the University of Technology.
Indeed it is.
I finally said it publicly.
National University.
Right.
Rightly so. And so, you know, the University of Technology, Jamaica, has been a fabulous supporter and encourager of debating across Jamaica. In fact, the patron of the event is the university's president, Professor Stephen Bassiani, and so we're delighted at that.
Yes.
And just the outpouring of support. And so this year in particular has been the strongest staging of the event to date.
Right. How many years has?
So this is its third edition of the exchange, the academy and open.
Yes.
And it really is designed around giving students an opportunity to learn a vast amount of content in various areas. So we're looking at debating, generally speaking, you know, core ways of arguing effectively, but we're looking at also building their competencies and knowledge in various areas. So we have several electives. We had morality and ethics yesterday. We're going to be having human rights today, which is exciting.
What time does that begin?
It runs all day. I'm not sure what the exact timing is, but I mean, at any point in the day, several concurrent electives might be going on.
And this would have been planned months and weeks ago.
It has been weeks.
The backdrop that is happening across the political landscape in Jamaica is just a catalyst or a coincidence to these events on the issue of human rights and ethics.
It happens to be a coincidence. It happens to be a coincidence, and we think that it's right that we're doing this right now, because young people in particular need to be engaged at a level where they participate in a democracy, and they recognize that they too have a role. It's not just about, you know, tweeting and engaging in social media, disconnected from what's happening in their country, but they need to know. And so we're trying to have them become excited about knowledge, about grasping information, and then also to participate in the conversation that needs to happen as well. So
I don't know if you gentlemen had met Norma Rochester before she passed, but if Norma Rochester was still alive, Jermaine, she would have been at these events yesterday and today.
Oh yes.
And I remember she once said, the value of what you have to say is not measured by the volume at which you say it.
Yes.
And then she went on to say that actually those two things are usually inversely proportional. So the higher the volume, the lower the value.
Yes.
What is there for the value to proper debating and to the abilities to articulate convincingly your points of view?
Well, the example that you gave of recent political discussions is important, but I think one of the reasons why we understand debate as being integral to the curriculum is every day people are making decisions based on the information that they have and their ability to digest the information that's coming to them to make choices. That those choices, that's debate. You're debating with yourself all the time. What you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, where you're going to travel, where you're going to attend religious services, which schools you're going to attend. Those are all debates that you're having with yourself or with your family or with other community members. And so what debate teaches you is how to be aware, be a critical listener, understand good information. There is a gentleman in the United States, Dr. Stephen Glass, who once said that debate teaches empathy. It teaches you how to truly understand the other side, which is perfect for what Mrs. Rochester's comment is, because when you have a better understanding, you don't feel the need to talk as loud to make your point. One similar saying that we would have is the difference between having to say something versus having something to say. Debate teaches you having something to say.
Yes. And for you, sir?
Absolutely. So we think of debating as a community event. And so I was glad to hear Jermaine talk about debating in the context of democracy. So the reason why we believe that everybody has a voice and everybody must participate is because democracy requires participation of all of its citizens. When we find that only some citizens participate and others do not, the ones who participate will participate in their own interests and close out the ones who don't participate. So we believe that debating is incredibly important for the purpose of showing people how to participate in a democracy, for the purpose of making the democracy strong.
Right.
And every single question that comes up in a debate is a question for the entirety of the democracy. So we often phrase a resolution in terms of this House believes, because the teams debating are representing positions, and those positions need not be their own personal position. They're representing the position for the House or for the community. Or if it's a debate that happens in the entire country, they're representing positions for the entire country. And the question for the country is, which way do you go? Do you elect somebody who will lead you towards democracy? Do you elect somebody who will lead you away from democracy?
Or toward a particular outcome or the approach?
Absolutely.
Oftentimes, Jermaine, the outcomes are, however expressed, identical if achieved. It's the approach that the discontent or the disconcertion exists around. Let me ask a specific question in terms of the proceedings yesterday and today and the element of participation. We have become familiar with low voter turnouts on the actual day of casting a ballot. But in 21st century democracies and societies, does that even represent a requirement for participation anymore, the casting of a ballot, when you could post a tweet, Jeremy?
Right. And so, and that's an important question. So we don't necessarily take the position that persons necessarily need to go to the polls to cast a ballot. We say fundamentally you need to participate. And participation can be through many means, right? Some persons find it advantageous for themselves to vote. That might be good. We don't take a position on that. What we say, fundamentally, engage in your democracy. Be an active participant in the development of your society. And let your voice be heard.
So the Lotto slogan, if you don't have a ticket, you don't have a chance. If you don't cast a ballot, do you have a voice?
Well, you know, democracy transcends the ballot box. It goes beyond the elections. And so what we're trying to do, certainly, is to get participants across the island to continuously engage in the administration of the society and to contend, right? To have a voice and to speak. And you made a point, quoting Norma Rochester, that it's those who speak the loudest that are oftentimes heard. I have a particular interest in how classroom and the school system is administered in Jamaica. And one of the interesting things we're doing for this academy is we're having a special workshop on debating in the curriculum that Professor Michael Hester will be leading along with Javon. And what it's designed to do is to give teachers the capacity to understand how it is that you can use elements of debating in the classroom to get better educational outcomes. And that's something I'm fascinated by, because in our classrooms, we oftentimes, first of all, we have overcrowded classrooms,
Yes.
and only those students who are willing to speak get heard. And then you have the little boy, Tom or Mary, at the back of the classroom, whose head is always down, who is not paying attention, and the teacher is unable to engage with that student. So we're going to be sharing with them ideas about how it is that we can engage the entire classroom and we can have classroom being so much fun.
I'm having deja vu. I wish you could press the rewind button. Actually, my teachers at St. George's College wish you could press the rewind button, which is a perfect time to take a break.
Yes.
We're going to continue the value of better debaters and better debating to society and to the success of a population when we come back from the break.